Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. Wow, I've never done that before. I'm not even going to edit that out. Turmeric and Tequila, we're not even drinking yet. Maybe we should be. I have fitness fam in the house. I'm super excited about this conversation because we have fitness meeting business and in the CrossFit world. So all of my heart space is showing up in this conversation today. I have Anthony Gonzales from Mas Ropa coming through. He's going to tell us about his story, but I'm super pumped to hear not only an entrepreneur in the fitness mix, but to hear the fitness community embracing entrepreneurship so well and with so many open arms. It's a super competitive space. So we're going to talk about the business journey, the fitness journey, and how they are a mission-driven business. So without further ado, Anthony Gonzo, aka Gonzo. I hope we're in friend space because now I'm calling him his friend name. Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is pretty fun.
Yeah. We haven't even got started yet, but I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, well, I mean, setting up was already fun. I was like, okay, am I setting this right? So
the audio, the microphone, it's all the things. If you've ever done a podcast before, you know how it is, but we're learning out here. So, we're getting better at being a better human on all the levels. So tell us about young Anthony, because we'll get into the business, we'll get into the fitness, but I'm always curious about the human behind the cause. Tell us kind of how you grew up, what you were passionate about, and what kind of led you to right now.
Okay, so man, I have a lot.
You have a quick version.
All right, let's go ahead and kick back and let's listen to my full story. I was born in June 9th, 1986. I'm just kidding. No. So I am born and raised in Dallas, Texas, and I grew up in a small little town called Pleasant Grove, and then moved to Mesquite, Texas, and then just grew up in those little. Pleasant Grove and Mesquite are like right next to each other in Texas. And, I actually grew up my parents brought in foster kids in from the juvenile detention centers. So I grew up with kids coming in and out of our homes since the age of 2 or 3, all the way until I moved out and lived on my own. And so I had different types of kids living with me and just kind of embracing new people every month. And that was one thing that is I thought that was normal until I got into middle school, and they're like, who are these people? And I'm like, they're my foster brothers and sisters. And they're like, what? So, but I grew up doing that. I played sports when I was younger, Pee Wee football, baseball. And then I got into, skateboarding, got huge in skateboarding culture. I actually started, this is really funny when this kind of started my entrepreneurship type mentality was I became when I turned 15 years old, I wanted to work at a local skate shop called Fast Forward. And actually we can blur that out if we want, but I worked at a local skate shop. I wanted to work at a local skate shop, and they said I didn't fit the culture. And even though I went there every week to purchase skateboards that I broke, and everyone knew me from skateboarding, and I was like, oh man, I kind of walked away with my head down. I was like, man, I can't believe I didn't get the job that I wanted. It was the first job I interviewed for. And I turned to my dad and I was like, yeah, they didn't hire me. And my dad was like, well, just start your own. And I was like, yeah, I will. Yeah. And so what I did was I started saving up money, and then I worked with my dad on the weekends doing remodeling stuff. And then I saved up enough money to buy skateboards and all the trucks, wheels, bearings, hardware, and selling it out of my car. Yes. I was going to local skate parks and kind of just, skate, and I would trade in old skateboarders decks and resell them to kids who couldn't afford my boards, and just kind of doing that. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to make this my own. They say I'm not the culture, I'm going to show them that I'm the culture. Yeah. Right. And then that kind of helped me in high school of just kind of selling skateboards and whatnot. And then went on tour with my brother Angelo, who you guys have met. He's usually with the tents with us. He's a hip hop artist named Gallery Cat, and he's been doing music for years. But I went on tour with him and kind of like really got embraced with just more communities and just going to different towns and just kind of learning about just people, right? And just kind of like understanding that we're all humans, and there's everyone wants us just to share love at some point, just wants to have love. And that tour was called the Extreme Tour, and I was on that for about a year. And it's just kind of like I just embraced community and these little outlets, and just wanted to just encourage people through skateboarding, through music, through these different avenues. And one common thing is just wanting to motivate people to just be a better person, and to just kind of like share love, as hippie as that may seem. But yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to really learn how to, run a business. And so when I got back from touring, I was like, that same skate shop got bought out by a bigger skate shop, and they hired me because they were like, oh, this guy, he's been doing this out of his car, and like there was really nothing like let's get him in here, and helped open up one of the first stores out in Dallas. Then I became a store manager, and then went to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and learned about snowboarding culture, and then fell in love in the mountains of just living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and went back to Texas. And I was like, all right, I got to get back to Texas. And it took me about 8 years, but I met my wife in Texas, and then I was trying to convince her. I was like, hey, eventually I'm going to move to Colorado. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to move to Colorado. And I was like, I miss the mountains. I miss snowboarding. And my wife's from Puerto Rico, and she's like, never.
A little colder.
Right. And then, after 8 years or 7 years or whatever, we decided to come out here, and came out here to help open up a roofing company. And then with that roofing company, things didn't go as planned. So I started my own roofing company. And I started my roofing company in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic.
Wow.
And it just kind of like, all right, it's like we made it through the pandemic and we're still going. So we're doing something right. And which is called MTN Roofing. So, now that I started my own roofing company, one of the things I tell my sales reps is that, hey, like when you're in roofing, there's, no one's really passionate about roofing. Like no one says, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a roofer. It's like not very rarely that happens. If it is, okay, God bless that little kid, but one thing I said is like, hey, when you're out there selling, and make sure you're selling with a purpose, and making sure that, you're not just selling for the money, that there's something, that there's a goal that you should try to accomplish, that, it should be a goal that you should. I don't want you, honestly, as weird as it is, as I don't want my sales reps to work for me forever. Right. I want them to make enough money so they can go and venture out and do their own thing that they're passionate about. And so as we're doing this, and my health was getting out of control. I was snowboarding in the winter and won't do anything in the summer, because all I'm doing is in the truck, driving around, looking at roofs, making sure the guys are, doing what they need to do. I would just gain all the weight I would lose in the winter. I'll gain it all back in the summer. And so my health was kind of getting out of whack. And then my doctor was like, hey, you need to do something with your health. Like you need to stay consistent. You're shocking your body, and you do something. And one of my guys that I work with says that, hey, you should try CrossFit. And I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, that ain't me, man. I skateboard and do music. I'm an artist. No, like this is not, no, that's not me. He's like, well, dude, just try it. You might like it. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then my father passed away, and I was really getting just emotionally, feeling down, depressed. And, yes, I was keeping busy with my company, and my health is still getting out of whack. And I said, you know what, I got to keep my mind busy. I got to do something. And so I was like, what, screw it. I'm just like, I'm going to try CrossFit. Yes. I called Gobs. I literally looked at Google and was like the closest CrossFit affiliate next to me. saw a CrossFit mob, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna call them. And I literally called him and was like, listen, I the guy, the owner of the company happened to be in Hawaii, and I was like, oh great, this guy is like on vacation. Like, I was like, listen, I don't care if you're on vacation. I'm going to tell you right now that I can't afford to get hurt. I heard so many bad things about CrossFit. I listen, I need to do something. I tried Orange Theory. I tried these other things. I tried these cardio stuff, and it just wasn't working for me. And I was like, listen, CrossFit, my buddy says I might like it. And you know what? I can't afford to get hurt. I was doing research, and it's saying all this bad things, the bad techniques and forms. And he was like, no, we're not like that. Trust me, like, come to our foundation class. Let me do a trial. And then let me, let one of our coaches, which is April, let her, walk you through this. And that's the least thing we don't want you. We don't want you to get hurt. It's about getting healthy and making sure that you're doing things right. And you don't get hurt. So I was like, all right, I'll try it. And then, so the first, like free class I went to, I didn't understand what was happening. I was just kind of got into the class, and I was like, I was like, what's going on here? They're like, all right, this is the workout. You got to do this, this, this. And I'm like, all right, I just know that I got to move this weight, and I got to do it as fast as everyone in here. Looks like there's a time cap here. And if I can finish it faster, can rest. And dude, absolutely, I didn't even come close. I was like, this is killing me. Like, oh my gosh, this is like, oh my, but the competitive side in me kind of was like, why can I not like keep up with this like little lady that's next to me who's just throwing this weight around, and I can barely do it. And it was actually an eye opener for me. Was like, man, I'm not as strong as I am. My cardio is way out of whack. But I felt really down on myself. I was like, dude, I cannot believe. And then I felt really awkward a little bit, because everyone was kind of like waiting for me to finish. But what I was noticing between the workout, even the first day, was there was people going, you got this. Hell yeah, you got it. You're almost done. And then like, I just couldn't do it. And they're like, man, you did a good job. And I was like, who the F is this corny people? Like, why are you like, this is like, you're all in on it. You know what I mean? You're all in. I just want me to be a member or something. Then I took the foundation class with April, and she was like, listen, it's all about, let's make sure your form is right, and let's make sure you're doing this. And then I said, you know what? And I did couple more classes, and I was like, man, I'm like really liking this. Like, this is cool. And what I liked about it was, what I noticed was, when I was working out, when everyone's encouraging you and saying, you got this, like it reminded me of skateboarding culture. So, and I think I was telling you this when we first met, or so it's like skateboarding culture in the way, and even snowboarding is we're all trying a trick on one obstacle, right? It would be a stair set, right? Let's use a stair set, for example. One's doing an ollie, one's doing a flip trick, one's hitting the rail, and we're all there together. So there's different levels of trying to accomplish this one stair set. And we understand, if you can't ollie, if I've already done that, I understand how hard it is to get to that ollie. We understand that. And we're there cheering, like, bro, you got this. And there's even that thing of like, I'll back you up. As soon as you land this, I'm going to come behind you, and I'm going to land my trick. And it was just kind of like that's the skateboarding culture. Is you got this, like, let's do this. And it's very encouraging. And I got that same feeling in CrossFit. And I was like, dude, this is really fucking cool. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, I like this. And this is not like your typical do bros that I see at like, those other gyms. And it's just like, I think I can vibe with these people. I think this is kind of cool. And then I was like, you know what? One thing about me is I like to feel confident. And one of those things is making sure that I feel and look cool. Right. Is like, so I was like, I couldn't find, when I went to the outlets near me and the malls, I couldn't find anything cool for me to work out in that I felt comfortable in. And so I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to sketch up something for myself. And now I started sketching up this like kettlebell skull design. And I was like, man, this is looking kind of cool. I said, I want to make this for myself. And so I reached out to my friend Nick, and I said, hey man, I got this idea. Here's the sketches that I have. I was like, I want this to be a t-shirt for myself to just kind of wear. I'm just going to get a couple of them made. And yeah, like, can you help me out? He's an amazing graphic designer, illustrator. And he was like, yeah, let me clean this up for you. Like, I got you, bro. I was like, cool. He set it up for me, which is this design right here. He cleaned it all up, made it hella sicker, way
Love it.
sicker than my little sketch. And I was like, sweet. And then I showed it to one of my buddies at Mob, and I was like, hey man, I'm getting these shirts made for myself. And he was like, bro, like I need one of those. Like
Yeah.
that's a badass design. Like that's cool. And I was like, you think so? He's like, yeah, you need a like people would just love that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, cool. I was just really making it for myself. And he was like, make me one. And then everyone in the gym was like, yeah, let me have one of those. And so
Yes.
I was like, cool, all right. And then going back to making sure you have a purpose in something. And I was like, man, like maybe I can like I'll sell a couple of shirts. Hey, if I have an opportunity to make a little money, maybe this is going to help support my fitness journey that I'm now starting to enter. Let's do that. And so I came up with the name Uno Mas for a couple of reasons. Is one is I can't do RX, right? I just started. I can't do it right now, but it doesn't mean that I won't get there.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, I know what I can do is do my max effort and go one more, Uno Mas. And then I started thinking like that's a perfect name because even in skateboarding and snowboarding, we don't say last run.
Right.
Hey, let's go. Let's just let me just try this last. Let me just let me just this will be my last try. Okay, it's like no. You don't say it's bad luck. You say, hey, let's go one more. Let's go one more. I got this. I'm gonna do it again. Like there's no, this is my last try. And it's just like we're gonna keep going. It's like this is perfect. It fits me. It fits my authentic self of saying I'm going to go one more. I even say that with my sales reps when it comes to roofing. It's like when they're out knocking on doors and they're trying to generate business from themselves, they'll say, hey, we're going to knock this one block, and you might get all these no's, and you do all these 20 or 50 houses on this one block, and you're like, man, I didn't get anything. Hey, let's go one more door. And you go knock on one more door, and they're like, that's the one. And that honestly, it happened to me with one. I was actually with my brother. We were doing a roof a couple of months ago, and I said, we're installing a roof. I said, hey, I'm gonna go knock this neighborhood. We're knocking, nose, door slamming in my face, and I go, hey, Uno Mas. And I went caddy corner and went to the block, right next to us, and guy was out in his garage. He's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, listen, blah blah. And long story short, I wound up doing his roof, his neighbor's roof, the neighbor across the street, the one caddy corner. It like, if I wouldn't have gone one more, I wouldn't have got literally 6 more houses because of that. And that's that mentality of like, even when it's going to get tough and things are going to get hard, and you still got to give it your all. Even when you feel like you can't give anymore, try going one more step, one more thing to go above and beyond for what you're trying to do now. And you never know what's going to happen. Right. The least is that you can say is, you know what, I tried, and man, I can go one more. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I was like, man, this is perfect. I can. And this is where I was like, okay, I want to make this into more than just targeting to CrossFit or anything. This is targeted to me, people like me. It's like, okay, when I feel like things are going to get rough, which they have, I mean, man, when my dad passed away, I was like, man, I don't know how I can do this. And at the time I was really struggling with drinking at the time, and before my dad passed away. And I was like, and when my dad passed away, I definitely wanted a drink. And I was like, you know what, I can go one day without that. You know what I mean? And I was like, I don't need that, especially right now. You know what I mean? And so it helped me with that. And then, when especially starting a roofing business in the middle of the pandemic, it's like, you know what, I can do this. You know what I mean? Like I can make a way and figure this out and make sure that, I can provide for my family and whatever it is. Like, I want to make sure that I'll give it my all. One thing that my dad told me was like, hey, like, do your best and let God do the rest. And like, that's what he's like, you can, just try your hardest in doing this. So, but yeah, man. So when Uno Mas, and it's cool because now with roofing, like, yes, roofing is my main bread and butter, but just like I tell some of my sales reps, is like, have a purpose and another reason why you're not just for your family, have something for yourself. And there's a thing about Uno Mas is like, you know what, like, this is my passion project. I'm going to make this my passion project. And it's been it's been going like, man, it's been the community, the CrossFit community is really embraced Uno Mas. It's really embraced me personally. And, I mean, as, as, as crazy as it is, it just makes me feel like honestly, I've been out here for almost 5 years. And, I felt like I didn't have, all I had was like my employees who are like, who worked for me. And I never felt like I had like some true friends or true community. And when I was in CrossFit, it's like, man, I'm actually, these people are like these are genuine as people.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it's something about when we were suffering together and
For sure.
we're suffering together and we kind of all understand that hardship together.
Hmm.
That's when that community, it grows and makes it stronger, right? And I think when these little bitty battles, which these little battles, and I call them little battles, and when we go work out, right? It's like these little RX, whatever we're doing the WOD is, that WOD is that little battle, and we're all doing it together. And we're like, man, fuck, that was hard.
Yeah. That's where the bonding begins, right there.
Exactly. So
Well done. That was very well said. I was gonna jump in. I'm like, dude, you're good here. A couple of things, like some themes. It's so funny. I think when you get to a certain age and you kind of pull back and reflect on your life, and you're an intentional human, which most of my fitness friends are, my business friends, like we try and do the most and control what we can. But if you look back on your life, you kind of see how, I always say God, universe, Madonna, whatever you believe. I'm a big Madonna fan.
Nice.
How it was like universe was setting you up for what you were gonna do. Like it's so amazing that your parents were open-minded to and passionate about welcoming foster kids into their house. Can you unpack that a little bit for me? Like why were they passionate about that?
Okay, so my parents got married very young. I think my mom was like 14, 15 years old.
Okay.
They had my oldest brother, my mom was like, I want to say she was 14,
Oh,
15 years
wow.
old. Yeah, and my
Okay.
dad was like 16, 17 or something like that. Hold on. And so their parents pretty much kind of kicked them out and was like, nope, this ain't right. I mean, back in the 1970s, young kids, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, like that wasn't a normal thing. And so they pretty much had to just go work on their own. My dad used to my dad used to sell drugs. He was known in Deep Ellum area as that guy to get whatever you need from. And but when he had his first son, which is my oldest brother Adam, he stopped that. He was like,
Yeah.
nope. And one thing about my dad was he got really, like, my dad didn't have a father really. Like, he was around, but he was in and out of prison. My uncles were in and out of prison, excuse me. But my dad never went to prison, never did anything like that. All he did was, like, he sold a little bit of drugs, and then but his grandmother, excuse me, his grandmother like embraced him and was like, took care of him, and was like, hey, like, you have something better for yourself, and now that you have a son, that you need to kind of man up, you know what I mean? And so he started doing remodeling and started doing stuff, but he also had a lot of people in. So anyways, so my dad would be, we lived in, my parents grew up in Pleasant Grove, and Pleasant Grove is a very hooded area. It's very like, oh, it's pretty bad.
Okay.
And but there was these kids that were run away from home. There's a lot of gang activity, a lot of gang violence in this area. And my dad just was like, you know what? He just had something in his heart and was like, no, like, your parents kicked you out because, they kicked you out. You know what I mean? If it's because some of the kids will run away because they didn't want to be a part of the gang activities.
Mhm.
Some kids ran away because they were being abused, mentally, physically, sexually.
Yeah.
And so my parents was like, hey, you can stay, and you could stay with us. You ran away, stay with home. Well, that's harvesting and runaway, and that's illegal.
Oh, okay.
And so what happened was, Dallas, the Texas was like, hey, like, that's illegal. You can't do that. And my dad was like, well, who else is going to take these kids? Who else is going to, like, help them? And so instead of, like, charging my parents for harvesting runaways, they were like, hey, we're actually needing people to take in kids, and you can get paid by the state. You guys are like, my dad was like, he was just starting painting and carpentry work. And they were like, yeah. My mom was like, yeah, okay, whatever we got to do. And so my parents went into through the steps to becoming a foster parent, and to pick kids from the juvenile detention center. So they will go into the juvenile detention center and they will interview kids who got locked up, who ran away from home, or who made a mistake and they're just locked up. And so my parents would say, okay, I'm going to go interview these kids. And these kids are like, this is their last straw. They've been through the system already many, many times. So it's either this, the court would say, all right, Kristen, you've been in and out of juvenile detention center so many times. Your mom doesn't want, your parents don't want you. None of your family wants you. You keep messing up. So this is the last straw. You can either try to get into a foster home, or you can, we'll send you to the to Texas, to the Texas Youth Correctional Facility. You will stay there until your sentence until you return 18, and then your sentence starts, and then you go to prison. And so my parents will go and interview these kids and say, all right, listen, like, this is your last straw. Why do you want to be in this? So like, man, and my parents will start to dissect the kids who are really trying. And then they will say, okay, you're going to live with us from 6 months to a year. And that 6 months to a year, we're going to find a family member that wants you. And not only that, they're going to keep them, not only that they're going to, like, we're going to find that person in your family member that wants you, but before we release them to you, we're going to talk to them and try to counsel them and get them the counseling that they need so they can be ready to bring you into your home. And we're going to make sure that you get the counseling that you need so you'll be ready to go into their homes. And then sometimes we couldn't find anybody.
Yeah.
So the kids will be like, I don't have anybody. So my dad was like, well, I know how to paint. I know how to do carpentry work. My mom was a good cook. She's like, I'll teach you how to cook. And then they'll help them get into living on their own, independent living. And so they would do this seriously. Like, if I go and I put any of my old childhood footage or even photos, there's always a bunch of kids around me that were living with me. Wow. And that they were just my brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, Jose's living with me today. Oh, Chopo's living with us today. And like all these, we have all these different people living with us. And man, trust me, like, it was crazy growing up. Like, to me, like, I'll tell you a story. Like, one thing I learned about my parents doing this is unconditional love for strangers. And to me, it was like, wow. So I'll give you an example. I had one kid, we named his name, we called him Spanky. And Spanky got in trouble. So he was supposed to go visit his cousins or his aunts on the weekend. So when you're in good behavior, you get an opportunity to go visit your family who were trying to put you in on the weekends for a weekend visit. And so, but you have to make sure that you're doing everything you're supposed to do so you can go on the weekend visit. Well, because there was a family party that weekend, he was all excited and feeling all cool and like, I'm going to go see my family, my uncles and cousins, people I haven't seen in forever. So he acted up in school. He cussed out one of the teachers. He violated his probation. He violated the rules. And so my parents were like, hey, listen, you made a mistake. You can't go to this party this weekend. And Spanky was super pissed. Mm-hmm. And so, you know what Spanky did? He blew up my mom's car.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah. He blew up my mom's car.
Wow.
And get this, instead of my parents saying, that's it, you're going back to the juvenile detention center, my mom and my dad goes, man, you're really hurt.
Yeah.
And they're like, and you know what? Like, instead of us reporting this to your probation officer and sending this in and doing all this stuff, you'll go back to jail and you'll never see any family again. Yeah. Right. That's a huge thing. My parents are like, you're not going to see you're not going to have any weekend. You're starting back from zero. Yes. Our car, that's a material thing.
Yeah.
And it was my mom's first nice car. It was like a nice Lincoln. This was like 94 or something like that. And it was like super nice. And they blew it up and like, we're not going to do that. We just want to tell you right now that we love you. And we love you enough to know that right there, I'm glad that no one was hurt. Yeah. But I can see the hurt in you. And I was like, are you effing kidding me?
Wow.
Like, he blew up my mom's car. You know what I mean? Because he couldn't go see his cousins as he hasn't seen them forever in that weekend. And it was like, that's what happens. But what I learned from that was like, man, that's unconditional love. Mm-hmm. that's a thing that is like, wow. Like, and I asked my parents, like, why did you do that? Like, because like he doesn't have, this is his last chance to have somebody, and then you act up, you do this, but you have to have some kind of mercy. Forget him. That car, that's replaceable.
Yeah.
This person's life, if he goes to jail, that can wreck his life. And I was like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so like stuff like that happened. Now, I have some other stories too. That'll be another thing. But to me, it was just like, wow. So I learned growing up about, man, having a passion for people and understanding that people, they don't have some people just don't have anybody, and they feel so alone, and they feel like there's
well, a lot of
no
people
hope.
are alone. Do you think your parents, like when they wanted to get married and had a kid young and they kind of felt their sense of rejection, that sort of inspired their journey?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, I just found out, like, I don't know how much this is true, but I just found out that when my grandmother found out my mom was pregnant, she apparently shaved my mom's head and was like, shaved it. It was like, let's see if Adam still wants you pregnant and disgusting looking. And my dad was like, I don't care how you look, I'm still gonna love you. We're gonna make this work. And I'm like, wow, like imagine your parents doing that to you, right? And like, just because you're having a baby before marriage at a young age. And it's like, but that's a different time, but still it's like, that's awful. You know what I mean? And then I didn't know this until like years later that happened. And my mom still loves her mom. And I see that love, and I'm like, man, no matter how many bad shit people do to you, it's like, hey, like, but you have to have some kind of forgiveness. Like, people, there's a value. They told me that there's more value in a person. That to me is I believe in a person more than anything. You know what I mean? I will always go towards a person in need. But
well,
but
if clothing doesn't work out, you can always run for the president. So that's what we really need in our world. So if roofing and clothing fall through, man, just jump into politics.
Right.
Because that's what we need. And it's super fascinating to see that they were so young with these super adult challenges. And obviously on Turmeric and Tequila, in the state of our world, there's a lot of conversation, thank goodness, around diversity and inclusion. And one of the beautiful things that I think is that you can see how different we are. Our experiences are different. We look different, whatever. But this generational narrative of how, like, in different cultures, like things like our parents and our parents' parents, things are supposed to be a certain way. And regardless of what culture or whatever, there is this kind of like running through line of like, my parents had those ideals, but it was in a different way. And their parents, my grandparents, even stuff I hear them say now. And I was like, oh my God, it's 2022. Like, that's not real life. Like, you don't need to be married to have a kid. Like, I hate to tell you this.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
It's all these things. So it's kind of like, it's a cool bonding point, almost like CrossFit, where it's like, we look different. We clearly have different backgrounds. We clearly do whatever. But you know what? My grandparents were actually kind of like yours, or like my culture and my generational narrative was so similar. And it's fascinating to see like how locked in our grandparents are, and us to our society today, of how things are supposed to be. And then here comes the younger generation being like, actually, no, we're gonna blow this up.
Yeah. And I think a lot has to do with that is obviously the internet, the social media, podcasting, all that, because we start to look in a window through other people's lives, and you're like, wow, that's like, there's, you go on, you see incidents happening all the time on TikTok, Instagram, and you just take a look in someone else's life. And then what happens is that if you have an open mind, you have a different perspective. And like, man, I never, like, example, like, dude, this whole cop thing that's been going on, like, like making sure you record your stuff and making sure you got to be careful when cops are around. It's like, that's normal to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I remember when we were skateboarding, and I told my friends who were skating, and I'm like, hey, if a cop comes, let me handle it. You know what I mean? Like, let me talk to them. Like, we'll just, like, I know how to defer this. I know how to, to like, let's change the energy in it. Like I just had that in me because of being in the juvenile detention center environment. I'm like, I know a little bit of my rights. I know what we need to say. I know how do we need to say it. And like, and it was like, I see these little like, oh, film, are you filming this? And, and I'm like, this has been going on forever. And so to see, this is why I like these different platforms now, is that people or like, man, like I want to be an ally. I want to make sure that people feel safe around me with LGBTQ or Black Lives Matter or whoever. And it's like I want to be that advocate for them. I want to be that ally. And it's like, to me, it's like, that's awesome that the narrative is changing and the new generation is changing, because now, because of the power of social media, people are starting to see it and like have a different perspective. It's like, what, white privilege or what? That's a thing. Like, yeah, bro, like, yeah, like I remember one time I was walking in Best Buy, and I was walking around because I was looking for something to get the top salesman. Like every time the company I used to work for, every month the top salesman, I'll go, you get them either like something cool for being the top salesman at Best Buy or whatever. And I was walking around. I didn't have any of my roofing stuff on. I just looked like me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just started being followed. And one of the other sales reps was with me, and she was like, why is this person following us? I was like, he probably doesn't want me. He probably thinks I'm stealing. He's like, no. And I was like, no, it's a normal thing. No big deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and I was just being followed the whole time. And then I just turned around. I was like, hey, do you want to help me, or do you want to just like follow me? You know what I mean? They're like, we just want to make sure like what it is that you're looking for. And I'm like, okay, I want to make sure that you help me. And I just kind of like changed that because that's something I'm used to. But then that opened up that sales rep's mind and was like, I cannot believe that. Like they were just following you. And I was like, yeah, like to me, that's a normal thing. When I don't have my attire on that says that I'm a working man, I just look like a Hispanic guy with, big glasses or whatever, or I'm a big Mexican guy. Yeah. And unfortunately, you get followed. You know what I mean? You get followed at Walmart. I get followed at, different stores. And, and to me, it was like, oh yeah, people don't see that that's a normal thing. You know what I mean? Right. Like that, and it's just one of those things. It's like, wow, like, but yeah. So it's just one of those types of things, but.
Yeah. Well, the upside of social media, as you're saying, is like providing space for that conversation. That's quite literally why I started the podcast as my passion project, because being on the marketing branding side, I saw a deep sense and felt a deep sense of responsibility of like, time out. We have to, like, I say gracefully disrupt, but kind of like blowing up the car. That's kind of how I felt of like, we need to disrupt this, because I feel socially responsible. If the narrative is coming through the cell phone, and this is what our kids are consuming and digesting every single day, this is their truth with smoke and mirrors and all the fakeness that's out there. I'm like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. And I was actually coaching a high school varsity lacrosse team at the time right out of college. And so I didn't obviously grow up with Instagram, whatever. I got Facebook after college, thank God. Like all of that was after my adolescence. Although we still have adolescence tendencies. So I was catching up, and I'm like, this is so impactful. And it's so it's genuinely just, it's so influential in like how you process. And even if you're grounded, you're an adult and you know yourself, this is this is impacting you. Like this impacts our thoughts as adults. So I felt the responsibility, and that's why the upside of is we can cultivate this conversation. We can have conversation around uncomfortable things. And it's like, oh, I now that we can talk about it, I totally understand what you're saying. And now I see your side. I never would have said that or understood that living in white privilege. Like I didn't see that. I have no idea. And you learn, and it's so amazing to build that empathy and build that conversation. It sounds like, again, universe is preparing you very early on, part of your like life mission, when you got rejected from the skate store as a young man, and them saying you don't fit in the culture. Like what the fuck? But back then, I mean, I get it. Like it's so, I don't even think they probably understood it. Not that I'm condoning it by any means. But we're so archaic in that conversation that it was like that experience almost like shifted and shaped your trajectory of how you were going to move forward.
Yeah, because honestly, that's what happened. Was it's like I literally, and this is what's so important with my dad was saying, and also too, just having somebody that can support you. But I was like, man, I didn't get the job that I wanted. Like I was like, that was my first big rejection, right? Other than like girls in high school. but
podcast.
Right. But it was like, I was like, oh man, like I was like super pumped. Like, man, they know who I am. Like I thought it was a shoe. And I was like, I go in there every week and I buy a skateboard because, I break my board and like, there's all these different things. Yeah. And I'm just like, and I was like, okay, I guess I don't fit the culture, whatever that means. Like, okay. And then I remember like, I was just thinking like, how do I not fit the culture?
Yeah.
Like, how do
You
I,
are
like,
the
what?
culture.
I was like, I was like, I don't understand that. Like this lady it was a lady. I was like, oh, this is funny. Hold on. So the lady who didn't hire me, right? That company got bought out by the other big skate company that came in and bought that company out. Well, when I came back from tour, I became a manager for that other company that bought that company out, and I
Yes.
wound up being her boss. But
Yes.
right before
Funny how it works.
I went to Santa Fe, and I didn't rub it in her face. I
Yeah.
didn't say anything. I was just like, and I just kind of like had that perspective of like, man, like, yeah, like I gotta stay true to myself.
Yeah.
Like my authentic self is like I'm going to make sure that if I'm passionate about something, I want to make an impact the way how I want to make impact. I'm going to be true to myself, and everything else, it's going to work itself
Yeah.
out if I just be honest, be transparent, work really hard, and that's it. And in a moment, I did felt like, oh, look who's coming into
Yeah.
my store now, and I was just like, and that person was like, "Oh my God, Anthony, it's good to see you. You've grown so much," and blah blah blah. And I remember, and I was just like, "Yeah, mother if I didn't put the culture now, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?" I'm thinking
Yeah.
like, I'm like, okay, and I was like, hey, and I was just like, and I could have. That was a very. I remember that very distinctly because I could have been like, I can totally just be like, oh, boast about it.
For
Oh, look
sure.
this now, and I was like, no, and that's what my parents and
I
like
was
the
gonna say that's your
integrity.
exact parents
It
experience.
was like that's not the way to do it.
Yeah.
The way to do it is say, okay, you don't know that person's what they've gone through since you last saw them. You
Mhm.
don't know what happened to them. Have
Yeah.
compassion. Have that, let's be there, be that good example. And so I was like, awesome. And then we worked together, and then I got promoted out to Santa Fe. And it was just like, to me, it was like, man, like, again, I'm not going to be that person to be, haha, look at me now. Look at
Yeah.
this. You didn't believe in me. Now look where you're at. I'll never be that person. You know what I mean? And I've seen people do that. And I'm just like, ugh, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so with me is one thing is that I just want to, again, I don't know their situation. I don't know what happened to them. And I'm not the right person to judge them because I
Mhm.
don't like to be judged like that. Right. So that
What?
golden rule, right? That
Well,
golden rule. Yeah.
no, you no, you say the golden rule. Don't let me cut that part off.
Yeah. I got you.
I think it's just so critical because your parents modeled it, but it's hard even as an adult though to not want that validation or be like, haha, I gotcha or something because those rejection points. I mean, as a female, I've felt that tremendously as an athlete. Women's sports, we always had less than men. And I'm not also
Mm-mm.
comparing anything cultural to like male female and to sex.
Right.
It's
Right.
kind of like those rejections were my biggest inspirations. Like anytime I was told I can't do something or I'm not enough, essentially, I was like, perfect. Well, now we're gonna, build something bigger and buy you out and sell it for $1 or whatever. Like it
Exactly.
kind of fuels the fire, but it's hard to not want to seek that validation and kind of getting back at them. So I really do applaud that,
But
even if you're an adult.
even though I think what what is it, the best revenge is success, right? The
Yeah.
best revenge is just
Best
being
friends, your paper, Beyonce.
right there you go. But yeah, so that's the thing is it's like okay, so you can call it revenge or whatever, but honestly, it's like no,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna do that. And you know what? It's just one of those type of things. It's just like yeah, it's like yeah. Anyways, I mean,
You got well, I think the thing is like that was a stepping stone for you. So that was like a
yeah,
haha, but you didn't have time to look back really because that was you were elevating, you were going, and each of these experiences were preparing you for what's bigger. Like now you kind of do this fitness journey and you're kind of back in like a retail situation, which
yeah,
wasn't even an intentional part of the process, but like
right.
here it is. And it's so cool. It's what's funny about CrossFit, and I was fortunate to play lacrosse growing up. So I got to play in college, and the best thing I ever did was go away and leave home. Again, not intentional, but like you're saying, I didn't have social media, but I got to see all these different perspectives. We got to travel the world and compete
Mhm.
and like stay in Japan in Japanese households and see
Yeah.
barely like understand communication, but like we could understand physical communication. We could understand like little jokes with parents. Like it was fascinating to have that perspective and gain empathy and understand how similar we truly are. So I advise
So relating, right? That's the biggest
yeah,
thing that I learned was I'm able to relate to the most cookie cutter person and then also relate to the most hood ass
yeah,
dude, right? And it was just like be able to like, and then also seeing like a hood ass dude relate to a little cookie cutter lady. And you see that in CrossFit. You know what I mean? You see that in CrossFit, you see that in skateboard, kind of see that a little bit in skateboarding. But when I was on the tour with my brother with the Extreme Tour, you know, we'll go to these little bitty cities to do these free like concerts and stuff, and like put on a skate show and put on, you know, do music, whatever. I just remember seeing like, you know, like old ladies going like, yeah, I like this music, and like bumping their head. And then we'll go into them. And then also like seeing these, you know, these same people, like these hood people just coming into and listening to like this rock band right after us, and be like, man, I like that. I'll fuck with this. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, to me, I see that diversity, see these two different dynamics and these two different worlds colliding was such a beautiful thing to see. And I see that in CrossFit. And I'm like, man, this is so beautiful to me. It's like, you know what I mean? I was like, man, I love seeing like literally like two opposite size people giving themselves a high five, even giving them a hug, all sweaty, and be like, man, good job. Like, you fucking crushed that. Like, you know what I mean? And it was just like, there's a respect to that, right? There's a huge respect. And I see that, and I'm just sitting back, and I'm like, I fucking vibe with this so good. And it's not just the workout, it is the environment that you're in. And to me, that is so beautiful. And I've seen that all my life growing up. You know, I've had the most indie rock kid, goth kid, sleeping next to the most hood, rugged, crip rocking like person, and they're like laughing together, watching TV together, and they're like, I can't believe, did you see that? And like, my dad will always do some kind of activities together, go paintballing. We'll go, you know, we either go one of his favorite thing was this is so funny, is we'll go walk the track or run the track, and then we'll go walk to Brahms, which is an ice cream hamburger store.
Perfect.
And just
Tequila.
Exactly right. And it was like one of those things, and our foster brothers and sisters loved that there. And it was just seeing like, oh, and you'll see, like, I remember I had two foster brothers that were trying to race each other, and there were just two different types of people, and just encouraging, just, I don't know, just getting along, you know, seeing everyone get along. You know what I mean?
Well, fitness is so beautiful, because when you walk in the room, no matter how you look, like where you're from, what you've done, like CrossFit, usually it's not, I mean, it's getting a little more glamorous. Shout out to Mob, because their setup is really beautiful.
Nice.
But usually, you know, traditionally it's like an old garage with like beat up stuff. You're kind of in dirty clothes. Like, you don't know where people are from. You don't know how much money they make. You know, but you know, when you walk in the door, you have one thing in common, and that's that you want to show up and do some work. So like that right there, I noticed that with like lacrosse, usually some sort of activity, theater, like, you know, that one thing. But it's funny you did music, because this is random, I don't even know if I've ever said this in the podcast, but my real dream, like what I really feel called to do, is build a choir. And that's the most random thing, because I have zero music experience. I love music, but I actually think music is the true like universal language. Like sports, fitness, theater, activities bring you together, but everybody understands and can feel music. Brainwaves and like the whole science conversation. But I think that's cool that you've had this experience like in fitness, but also music. And then, you know, the community building, like on the family side. I mean, it's very like eclectic how experienced you are in community. Like, I'm really curious to see how Uno Mas Ropa grows as a brand, but more importantly, as a community. Like, tell me some of your goals around not only brand, like sell 1 million shirts, whatever, but like, what do you really want to do with the brand and the community that you want to build?
So honestly, because Uno Mas Ropa is a clothing line that was a passion project, it's a passion project, really, right? And so my end goal is eventually is to give back to the community in a way that, I mean, I can imagine. And so this is what, and I said this before, what I really want to see Uno Mas be is a nonprofit organization. I want to be able to have a place where if you're like, have nowhere to go and lost and don't know, like I'm looking at someone who's, doesn't matter how old you are, need some kind of direction, you go to Uno Mas and say, man, I don't know, like, I just lost my job, and I've been working at this job for 10 years, and this is all I know, and now I'm just like, I don't know what I need to do. And I want to be able to be like, okay, well, listen, we have these workshops, and you can take us out these workshops, and let me connect you with, you know, car place. You like cars, you want maybe learn about car wraps. Why don't you go shadow this small business here locally and to see if this is something you might like. And then if you like that, then pursue it. If not, then let's go try something else. And it's kind of like I want to be, and then also too, I want to be able to have Uno Mas to be a place for to kind of like help the young adults or anyone really that mainly actually no the young adults of like I think about the kid who was really depending on a scholarship and they weren't really smart in school and they didn't get a scholarship, but they're an amazing athlete, but nothing didn't work out. And now all of a sudden they have to go back home or you know what I mean? Like they didn't get to college, they didn't get a scholarship. You know, they can barely get into community college and they're like, I don't know what to do in my life. And they live in the projects and they're like, man, I can either do one or two things. I can sell dope or I can go get a shitty ass job and hate my fucking life.
Yeah.
And I want to grab those kids and be like, hey man, it's all right. Like you can still do something with your passion. It's going to be a little bit harder, but this is how you can do it. Let's get you back into college. Let's try to find you a way. But if you can't get to that right now, if you can't afford that or whatever, dude, you're an amazing track star. Let's maybe get you become a coach.
I was going to say a coaching job or sell that kind of gear. There's lots of options.
Sell that gear. Or maybe like what did you like what do you like and dislike about track? What did you like and dislike about football? What is something you can see different? Why don't you try to be that change in that aspect and just give that little bit of motivation and do that. And that's what I really want to do versus if this might be a nonprofit eventually, or it might be something else. I don't know, but I just know that I want to give. And this is something that my parents installed with me is I want to give back to my community somehow. And that's why what I try to do at all of my events is right now, like we're still growing Uno Mas, but I want to give at least a little bit. I try to give at least 10% at every event to some kind of organization. Whatever I sell, I try to give 10% to somewhere, some charity, some organization and say, hey, like, here's our part. It might not be enough. Here's $100. You know what? We made $1,000 tonight. Here's $100. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm trying to find these avenues right now as we're still growing. And eventually I would like to make this a nonprofit and be like this. I mean, how cool would this be to be, this is kind of cheesy, just thought be like the Girl Scouts of CrossFit apparel.
Yeah. 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And just be
totally
like, why can't we have shirts and sell shirts and be like, this is the new Uno Mas thing. And like the person selling the shirts is like, just like the Girl Scout cookies, you know what I mean? Like, why can't we do that? Yeah. And why can't, and let's embrace not just young adults, but just teenagers or young adults, everybody, because CrossFit is everybody. Yeah. I think about like when I lost my job, I felt like, damn, like, what am I going to do? Like, I just dedicated my whole life and now I don't, like, I lost my job. Like, what am I going to do? Like, I got to figure this out. Right. Yeah. Because some companies, it's like, they value the value until they don't value you. And then when they don't value you, you're complacent or whatever. And then they're like, peace, no warning. No, they don't give you 2 weeks.
Yeah. You're a commodity.
Right. Exactly. And it's like, I want to look for those people and be like, I'm thinking about that mom who just lost her job at a restaurant she's been working at for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And that's all she known because she was comfortable and it paid the bills, whatever. And now she's like, what do I do? Maybe you start your own bakery, and then let's get you in line for that. But like I said, Uno Mas is a passion project, and it started with CrossFit, and it's kind of like bringing this stuff that I'm passionate about back out about the people, and it's just one of those things. It's like I just want to encourage people, whatever their dreams that they're trying to do, if it's in fitness or trying to lose weight, if it's maybe that business that you've always been trying to, like, I always want to start my own restaurant or start my own food truck, and it's like you can do it. Mm-hmm. Just try your hardest and then go a little bit more, go one more, right? And it's like Uno Mas Ropa is not a CrossFit brand. We're a motivational brand to say, hey man, I understand the hard work. I understand that when times get fucking rough and you feel like you have nobody and you feel completely alone, that no one believes in you, not even your friends, your family, your wife, your husband, your kids, whoever, they don't even believe in you, but you have something in you that you says, I believe in myself. And then you can't even believe in yourself a little bit. Sometimes it's hard to believe in yourself. It's like, but you know what? You can believe just a little bit more in yourself.
Yeah.
One more thing you can do. Okay. You ran into an obstacle in your growth of trying to do. Well, you know what? It's okay. It's okay to say, I don't know what happened or how to do this. Call somebody, figure it out, Google it. You know what I mean? And that's the thing about what I like about what I'm realizing about small businesses. And now, especially with the pandemic that just happened, a lot of people are really, one thing I really like about what happened during the pandemic is our need for each other.
Yeah. It
Right.
became clearer. Yeah.
It came clear. And what happened is with me was I was like, you know what? I actually reached out to one of my favorite brands. Like when I lost my job with that skate company, after I was a store manager, I lost my job with that place. And when I was feeling really low, and this is so crazy when this happened to me, but I went into the unemployment office and I was so ashamed and sad that I lost my skateboarding job that I liked, and like the skate snowboard shop that I really liked, moved to Santa Fe for it. And I lost my job and I was like, I don't know why I did everything right.
Yeah.
And they just disposed of me like it was nothing. And I just like, whatever. And I'm like, I guess I'll go to unemployment. I don't know what to do. Went in there, just like, can you help me out? Don't know what I'm doing. And when I walked out of the unemployment office, I remember just thinking like, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm so lost. And I looked across the street. I didn't have I usually have my skateboard with me, but I looked across the street at the unemployment office in Santa Fe, and there's a skate park there. And I looked over there and I see my favorite skateboarder, Chris Pastrius. I'm like, what the fuck? Is that Chris Pastrius? And I had met him, and I had met him only once, and it was in Keystone, Colorado, during this huge event that this company puts on. And I just went up to him at the time in Colorado. I was like, hey, I'm Anthony. I think I'm a huge fan of you and Jason Lee. Like, you guys are a big impact in my life. It's cool. That's all I said. And he was all right, cool, man. And I left. And then I hadn't seen him in like 2 years. And then I run into him at the skate park right across the street after I lost my job. And I looked, I'm like, that's Chris. Is that Chris? I think Chris Pastrius. And I walked over there and I looked, and I'm like, that is Chris Pastrius. I didn't have my skateboard with me. I would have just jumped on my board and be like, what's up? Didn't. And he looked at me and goes, Gonzo, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I met you in Keystone, bro. What's up? And I was like, dude, he goes, I thought you were from Dallas. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, this guy remembered me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, we started talking. I got to show him around Santa Fe. And I think it was the universe. You can call it the universe. You can call it God, you can call it whatever it is. I was like, wow, like, even at my lowest, like I'm like, there's something in me that I have to. So I kind of kept in contact with him. I got his personal number and I text him every once in a while. And I texted him when I started thinking about the Uno Mas stuff. And I just texted him, I was like, hey man, like, hey, just want to let you know that, like, you know, it's been like 15 years or however long it was. I was like, just want to say, you know, because we kind of would just text each other every once in a while. And he was like, yeah, if you ever need some advice, just let me know. I'm here for you. And, you know, I haven't really contacted him after that. And he was just like, that's cool. But to me, it was just like, I was like, you know what? Like, I really feel like I should be doing something in this, in like with apparel or whatever it is. And at the time, I still don't know. And just know that whatever you're going through, whatever path or avenue that you're going, just know it's kind of like, it's going to all connect towards your end purpose. Right.
Well, what I think you're saying is you don't really have to know the how. Like, sometimes we want to know what's the next step. Again, you graduate college, you do this, or like whatever you think you're supposed to be doing. You don't really need to know the how, and don't disregard all the skills that are there. Like you were talking about, like selling drugs or whatever. That's still sales. Like, sometimes in your past, if it looks a certain way, there's skills within those things that you can fully monetize legally, or put those efforts into other things. Like, it doesn't have to always be figured out. And this is something I have to tell myself multiple times, because as in marketing branding, it's changed and it shifted. You know, the landscape changes. Podcasting wasn't a thing. But like you just keep showing up, and you're clear on your core values and what you want to do. And then you kind of just have to let go, which is really, really hard.
And also too, it's okay to ask for help. Like, and ask for advice. With the Chris Pastrius thing, like, I asked him, he's like, yeah, whatever. But then I was like, you know what? Let me ask somebody who's in this industry. And I literally just asked Buttery Bros and was like,
oh, that's right.
Hey. I was like, hey, name's Anthony, just started CrossFit journey, got a little blah, blah, I'd love to talk to you about what I want to do and get some advice from you. And he's like, yeah, if you're at the Granite Games, let's do it. Let's meet up. And we got to meet up with these guys, totally open up to it, all because I asked. Sometimes you just got to do it, right? Just like when we go to CrossFit in the mornings or whatever time you go, it's like, okay, what's the WOD today? Well, I just got to do it. It's got to do it, right? It's just fuck. Just go through it. Yeah. And that's the same thing. The same mentality. It's like, just go through it. And then also too, if you don't know a movement, ask your coach, ask the person who's more experienced next to you, how do I do this movement?
Yeah.
And then that's that same thing. It's like, ask the person who's been doing it longer. And if they don't give you an answer, and if they don't want to help you, fuck him.
Yeah, exactly.
Just say, okay, ask somebody else. Say, okay, no worries. No worries. They didn't give it to me. A couple of things. They're getting super intimidated by you, or they really don't care about you. But one thing I like about CrossFit is people are genuine. They will help you out. And again, I asked Mob, hey, can I put my shirts here? We could figure out a structure. He's like, absolutely. Done. Ask CrossFit Ridgeback, can I put my shirts here? Absolutely. Yes. CrossFit Thornton, can I put my shirts here? Yeah. Boom. Just do it. And it's just like, okay, you have to just try.
Yeah.
And then when you try and you keep failing and you keep failing, just keep going one more. Just keep going uno más. And it's okay, man. You're gonna freaking like, and the thing is, it might be today, it might be tomorrow. And my thing is with me, I started like this, like selling stuff when I was in high school.
Yeah. Oh
you know
yeah. It's been weaving the whole time.
Yeah. And in like, it's like every single moment. And yes, like use those failures, use those failures as lessons and stepping stones and not obstacles. They look like an obstacle right now, but it's a stepping stone. That's what it is.
Yeah.
This obstacle is not it's a stepping stone. And when you step on top of that one, guess what? There's going to be another one that you're going to have to go through, and in another one and another one. And it's going to be greater. It's going to be harder ones. It's going to hit you in so many different ways, financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And it's just one of those type of things. It's like, you got to keep going. If you really, and when you feel like you're down and you don't have anybody, just know that like you got it. You know what I mean? That's part of it. You know what I mean? Man.
Well, I mean, I think the real big piece there is the asking. And I focus a lot on our young people, what's going on. But the thing is, this process is going to happen throughout your life over and over again. So I like that you are intentional about anyone and everyone, like CrossFit and, anyone that can come to the table at all ages. Because a lot of these processes, you learn, you evolve, and you figure it out, but then you go through it again, and you kind of have to go back to that space of like community and asking for help and finding a way to hang in there and on your darkest hour.
And have a clear purpose. You know what I mean? Have a clear purpose. If you're still like, I don't know, maybe it's like, I do have something in my, like I want to start my own company. I know. Why do you want to do that? Start with the why, right? Start with why. Why am I doing this? What's my purpose in doing this? And then if you start with why, start with that, and you start with your purpose, start realizing, okay, this is and put that why up on a board, put it somewhere where you can see it, and remind yourself, this is why I'm doing this. Okay. If you don't have a why, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Because you got to cling to that in the hard days, which the hard days will come. But I'm super pumped. I want people to come check you guys out. I love hearing how the CrossFit community has embraced like new entrepreneurship. I think in general, businesses have gotten so much more open-minded to the mindset of abundance and not being so competitive. And I think that stems from CrossFit. Like, we're competing, for our times, but really everybody just wants everyone to do their best. Like, if your best beats my best, well, so be it. But we all walk away better, having done the workout. So I really like this mentality in business of like a mindset of abundance. Yes, we'll find a way to collab, because I think that carries over into the world, into like your family mindset, your fitness mindset, your work mindset. I mean, it's pretty awesome to kind of find like-minded humans and then build your tribe that way of like, oh, everybody's mission driven. Like, we're all kind of in this army of good. And it's cool to see you guys doing that in the apparel space. Where do we find you guys? Hit us with Instagram, website, whatever you want to sell.
So our website is unomasropa.com. Okay. Our Instagram is unomasropa. Our TikTok is unomasropa. So that's where you can find us. And you can also find us at CrossFit Mob, CrossFit Ridgeback, CrossFit Thornton, soon CrossFit One Beat. Okay. I think one now. Right now we're talking with One Beat. And then whoever other CrossFit wants us in their space, please hit me up. My email is office@unomasropa.com. And that's Ropa is ROPA. So unomasropa.com. So just hit us up, and we'll love to collaborate. As you can see, we have a new logo, which is like the plus sign in the middle of the infinity sign. So it's like never stop going one more, right? And so that's the reason why we have that plus sign, even when it says Uno Mas, our O has a little plus sign in it. And that's because we always want to collaborate. We always want to do stuff with gyms, small businesses, whatever it is. We always want to collaborate and again, embrace the community as much as we can. And just know that we're always going to give a percentage to some charity, local charity, whatever. We try to keep it on theme or whatever. We're always going to try to give back to the community. But yeah, and just know that our end goal is to eventually, hopefully, if it works out, we can be a nonprofit that's, as we get bigger, or we'll have a nonprofit department or whatever it is. Right now, we're really trying to get a lot of brand recognition, get a lot of people to really back us up. We're building organically, and we want to just, continue to embrace our community in every way and aspect. So, yeah.
Love it. Build the base, build the partnerships. Hopefully we'll be doing a Turmeric and Tequila collab at some point. I'm excited to see you work with some of the local nonprofits and the charities. There's a lot going on, but I think as long as your heart and your mind's open, and like you said, you do the work and you do it honestly, like good things are going to keep coming in. So we'll definitely keep in touch, and maybe in 6 months or a year, have you come back on and you can share the glorious things that are happening. But it's cool. And it's cool that we're both in Colorado. So
another thing, a couple of things too, is that we're actually going to be,
tell us your events coming up.
So we got an event coming up. We got one happening at KJ CrossFit on the 29th, and also we're doing another one on the 20th. We're doing 2 events on one day, one at KJ CrossFit, the other one's at One Beat CrossFit with the Performance Project, which is Tyler owns it's a chiropractic. He's doing like a free workout and like cool down or whatever afterwards. And so we're doing that on the 29th of October. Then we're also doing the Turkey Challenge. That's happening very soon. We're excited about the Turkey Challenge. Yeah. And then we're super excited about, we're going to be doing Wadapalooza. So Wadapalooza, we're doing that one. We're going to go to Florida. I know what's happening in Florida is crazy right now. My heart goes out to them. Yeah. But apparently Wadapalooza is still going on. So we're still on schedule to do that. We're going to try to we're trying to get a couple of cool things that's happening there. I can't really say what we're trying to do unless we get, until we get the permits pulled and everything we're trying to pull off at Wadapalooza. If not, whatever. But also, if you guys are going to be there, come see us any of these events. We're trying, again, to sell as much as we can to support our community, but us too, to keep growing and to provide, I got a couple of guys that are working with me now with Uno Mas, and we're just trying to just keep building and keep growing so we can still provide for each other and for the community. So, but yeah, I hope to see all you guys and ladies and whoever just come out. I'm just super excited. So yeah, this is great.
Boom. There you go. Go support, go shop local, shop small, support your fitness family. I think everyone's an intentional consumer nowadays. So I'm excited to see how all this goes. I think it'll be great vibes, but I appreciate the time and energy. Like I said, we'll keep in touch and we'll see how this grows, but go check these guys out. Gonzo, keep crushing, keep the motivation going. This is what the world needs right now. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been fun.
You.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.